Everybody, boy, this is a fantastic turnout. I was just saying that when we decided to do this, I expected we would just have an intimate gathering with maybe 30 people of our network, but I think I hear we're upwards of 200 people today, so that's fantastic. It just indicates the kind of interest that we have here in Andorra. So I'm Kent Larson. I direct the City Science Initiative at the MIT Media Lab. How many of you have heard of the Media Lab? Wow, that's pretty good. Well, just to give you a little background, so several years ago we decided to start an initiative to focus on cities, and it grew out of my frustration traveling around the world that cities were just so badly designed, and so, particularly the new cities, particularly in places like India and China and Latin America. And I decided that it really was a societal imperative to find new and better ways. And I also realized that the whole process of designing cities and integrating new systems was dysfunctional. And it was dysfunctional because there are silos that don't really talk to each other. There's the whole world of urban planning, which is, in my opinion, 100 years behind. We still literally, in many places, design cities the way we did, certainly going back to the 1950s. Secondly, you had the world of tech companies thinking about smart cities and about technology and optimization, but typically they weren't involved in design issues and settlement patterns and kind of fundamental issues to get the structure of the city properly configured. And then thirdly, you had the world of public policy, of politicians and governments that were attacking the problem through incentives and regulations. And I'm convinced that you have to have an integrated approach of all three of those, and that just wasn't happening. At the same time, we have, the Media Lab, I mentioned the Media Lab because we talk about an anti-disciplinary approach. We don't talk about multidisciplinary because that's about getting different disciplines to work together. We think we actually have to break the walls down between disciplines. And even though I don't typically like to put things in the negative, I've come to really like that term, anti-disciplinary. So that's getting designers to think like technology people and computer scientists to think like social scientists, et cetera. So in our group, we've pulled together people with backgrounds in architecture, urban planning, social science, computer science, even cognitive psychology. And we really do try to break down the walls between those disciplines. And so we decided that there were three main concepts we had to focus on in terms of a new process. One is this anti-disciplinary approach, bringing people together. Secondly, was we couldn't really make a difference in the world just working in our laboratory in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We had to form a network of living lab collaborators, living lab partners, so we can think about real world problems, address the real challenges which are quite different in different parts of the world. Today is the first meeting of this new network of collaborators that we have put together. And like I say, originally I thought it would just be a little gathering of our collaborators. And I'm just delighted that there's interest here in Andorra that we have a larger group today. So our collaborators currently, and they're all here, Tongji University from Shanghai, Hafen City University from Hamburg, Aalto University from Helsinki, Taipei Tech from Taiwan, Andorra. We actually are now putting together other cooperation agreements, including Toronto, Lima in Peru, Quito, Ecuador, Liechtenstein, Barcelona, Madrid, a few others we're talking about, actually Cairo. So we hope to keep expanding this network. Andorra was our first major collaborative agreement, and so I'm very grateful to Andorra because it's been a terrific experience. We have criteria that we've set. I have actually six different things we look for in agreement. I won't go through all of those, but just to mention quickly 3 of them and its relevance to Andorra. One is that we like to have a clearly identified challenge that we can focus on, and we have that here in Andorra, and you will hear presentations later today that will discuss some of the work we're doing specifically here in Andorra. Secondly, we need data. Data is the fuel of all of this work. And it's been fantastic here in Andorra, working with Andorra Telecom, getting this rich data that reveals patterns of human behavior. Again, you'll hear about this today. Working with FEDA, getting unprecedented country-scale data on energy consumption and other data. And then thirdly, we require that we have a committed and engaged leadership that we can work with directly. That could be the mayor of a city like in Hamburg. In the case of Andorra, because it is a small country, we can actually work directly with the ministers, and that has been really, really fantastic for me and for our team. So what I'd like to do now is to invite Gilbert Saboya to say a few words. Gilbert, as you probably know, was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Gilbert is now Minister of the new Ministry of Economy, Competitiveness, and Innovation, and he's a friend that I've come to know over the last couple of years, and I think he represents the best and the brightest of Andorra. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. First of all, obviously, I'm very, very pleased and honored to welcome you all here at this first MIT City Science Summit here in Andorra. It was a pleasure that Ken thought about us for organizing this first meeting here. Welcome you all. When I started, when you always start this kind of presentations, first thing is saying thank you to all the ones that share with us this meeting, but also thanking all the teams that made it possible. And I'd like to thank the MIT team. Thank you, thanks a lot. I'd also like to thank the team from the municipality of Escaldes who arranged this wonderful space for us. It's a really innovative way of having this space. You should have seen it 1 week ago. It's nothing to do, so thanks a lot. It's been a personal commitment and involvement in this last week specifically, and thanks to the initiative Actua, all the people from the Actua Tech Foundation who have been helping you all. When we thought that we should explain a little bit how Andorra got involved in this innovation spree, the Minister of Tourism told me that I had to promise him that, profiting from the fact that many of you don't know nothing about Andorra, it's the first time that you come here, I would try to show you around a little bit, because we are very, very aware that you won't have much time to visit. So I promised Frances, said, okay, I'm going to show them around a little bit, so I will try to show you a little bit what Andorra is. So we will start with a short video, 2 minutes video. The problem is that, being an economist, I will fulfill my promise to show you around more in a touristic view, but I have embedded some information and data all along the video. And so you can relax a little bit, but not too much. Pay attention to some of the figures that you will see, because it will probably help you in understanding why we took the stance to work with the MIT some years ago, and it will make my presentation easier further on. So I will fulfill my promise. You can tell your people when you go home in Andorra, some politicians do fulfill their promises. So here it will go. And we had a French emperor, Napoleon that said that an image is worth 1,000 words. Napoleon happened to be the co-head of state of Andorra, so we have some kind of direct relationship to that. And so I will leave you with images, but I already warned you, you will not miss the 1,000 words, because afterwards I will keep on talking and talking. So let's see if it works, because when you present an innovation summit, sometimes things doesn't work. You see, that's we have the audio, maybe. Okay. I will skip it and come. Thank you. Well, I hope that gives you some appetite for coming back in a few months or sometimes. When you have to think about the presentation, two main problems I always face is how do I start and how do I finish. The rest comes a little bit by itself. And when I thought about how could I start to with which kind of image, because first image is always important, I thought that the first image should tell something about Andorra and should tell something about Andorran innovation. This picture is about the iron route. Andorra happened to live a huge transformation during 2 centuries ago because of a technological innovation which was iron and the production of iron. So this transformed literally Andorra, that became a very prosperous country during this period, doubled the population in nearly 1 century, extreme growth, and openness, because sometimes those things go together. Andorra was a closed society that opened itself to neighboring markets where they sold the iron. And innovation made in many ways because of ways of producing iron that were more efficient, or ways of having more transportation. Globalization already at that time made that the competitiveness was absolutely lost, and the production of iron disappeared. And so Andorra entered in a recession period. In fact, the population divided by 2 in another 100 years. The country closed itself another once to the world. And you see that there is a direct link between some of the items that we talk about. And the innovation that we'll talk about is a different kind of innovation, but it's all the same purpose. And curiously, today, the Iron Route is a Council of Europe labeled cultural and touristic itinerary. And it happens to be a very innovative way to promote tourism, which is now our most useful asset. And 50% of the economy is just based on that. So we can see that there was a very innovative way by mixing art and mixing history and mixing the natural environment, which are assets that we do have, leveraging them by applying some innovation to it, can change the playground. So the idea of the presentation is to show you how we have been evolving these last years in imagining that innovation could be a leverage based on existing assets that can change our world. When I worked on that, the first thing I had in mind is to explain you from the new ministry, because the Ministry of Economy, Competitiveness and Innovation has been launched 2 months ago. A new approach that we want to accelerate. This is the Compete project. Compete stands for a series of values and principles that we think should accelerate all the projects that we have in mind. It's based on 6 basic elements. The first one is competitiveness. We are willing to accelerate anything relative to both regulatory frameworks. We have to imagine new regulatory frameworks that favor innovation and competitiveness, but also we have to apply them to existing assets. You have seen some of them, projects linked to tourism, projects linked to sports events, projects linked to healthcare, to wellness. Those are the kind of projects that may have opportunities here in Andorra. Second of all, it's openness. We have to imagine that Andorra, being so small, cannot live isolated from the world. So if we want to be competitive, it's not by protecting ourselves, by having a protectionist reflex. It's about opening ourselves and being able to attract foreign initiatives here, but also being able to give people from Andorra the chance to go and exploit the opportunities in Andorra, in the neighboring markets from Andorra. Third of all, it's brand. Maybe you can help me in Catalan and Spanish and French, it's marca, so that's why the M stands for. But in English, mark is an obsolete word. So brand, why? Because that must help us in trying to have a new image of Andorra worldwide. We are very well known for tourism purposes. We would like to be very well known for innovation purposes. And so it's an excellent way for building and communicating, and the opportunity that the MIT is giving us today is an excellent example of that. Then it's projects. Everything must be based on concrete projects that should be arriving. Like the thing now. Maybe you can help. But I'll give you a sign if because that doesn't work quite well. Yeah. Okay, projects. Everything must be based on short-term projects, things that are achievable, because otherwise we lose the perception of advancing. And all these projects must be aligned with a much wider long-term vision, kind of a project with a capital P. And so that's why working with the MIT is very interesting for us, because it's all based on this project-to-project approach. The other point is innovation. Innovation is going to be the focal point. Everything must be thought on how innovation can bring us to this particular point. And in the case of Andorra, integration is also the capacity of integration, because we are so small. We don't have much muscle because we are not very powerful. We're only 70,000 guys. But instead of having muscle, we can have flexibility. We can have capacity of implementation, capacity of decision taking. And that's why innovation and integration are two of the very interesting pieces that we can offer. And finally, transversality. It's absolutely necessary that we involve public and private sectors on this initiative, and creation of the new innovation space here in Caldea, not far from here, with the MIT, is also a good opportunity to pull people together. We have to make things happen, and we have to create a space where the public and the private sector and the researchers and the academics can meet and face the problems that we face in the cities and try to find solutions. It's very important. It's based on network. Today we have the opportunity to take contact between many cities that visit us that also work with the MIT, and this network approach obviously is very important for the future. So we've been building up momentum based on innovation. We started in 2011. We identified at that time innovation as one strategic item that we should work on with a monitor group that worked with us in designing a new strategic plan for Andorra. In 2012, we launched the Actua initiative, which is today one of the main drivers for being present here today. We tried to involve the public, the private sectors. We had the Chamber of Commerce, and we have the Confederation of Entrepreneurs, both at the highest level in the board of this initiative. We launched an innovation cluster at the time, which was the first step after we identified it as a major changer, and we took contact for the first time with the MIT. We went there in 2012, and it was kind of a discovery. I went it personally and with the Secretary of State of Diversification, José María Misé, and that led the way to think that we needed to empower this initiative. That's why in 2013 and 14, we created a foundation that gathered Andorra Telecom, the telephone company of Andorra, FEDA, the energy company, which is publicly owned also, and the University of Andorra, which enabled us to have two of the major capacities in terms of innovation here, also financially solid, and also the University of Andorra, because obviously there is clear synergies with the researchers. And the first thing that the Actua Foundation did is, to sign a partnership with the MIT. I'm very glad that you mentioned it before. And we've been keeping on adding people to this initiative. And the OPSA, for example, which is the Observatory for Sustainability in Andorra, is one of the latest one that has been collaborating with us, and they've been helping a lot the last year and a half, and specifically also for this specific week. So building a momentum in order to gather the actual situation now. Results from that, in 2015, the innovation cluster already went private, with more than 60 members. So that is an important player. Actin is a very important player for us. Andorra was also present a few months ago for the first time at the Barcelona Smart City Congress, presenting the Cityscope and the PEV initiatives from the MIT. And this year, when the Confederation of Entrepreneurs made a study on business climate, Andorra as a living lab came as top 4 opportunity mentioned by the business community. So we started 6 years ago, imagining how innovation could be something that we could introduce here in Andorra conceptually. And today the business community mentions it like a top 4 opportunity. So it's a wonderful experience for us in this perspective. We have launched this week the innovation space in Caldea. I just invite you to visit if you have any time, and you will see some of the works that we are having with the MIT. But this is the space where we have to make things happen. This is a space where we want you visitors to meet with our guys, that we want the private sector to meet with the public sector around the city scope, to visualize what are the problems of the city, how we can solve them, and to make some new initiatives creating every day. Last, we have created this Ministry of Economy, Competitiveness and Innovation, convinced that now is the time to keep accelerating this possibility. How can we accelerate? By involving the public sector. If we wait for only the private sector to keep changing things, we will not succeed. It must be on a partnership. But the public sector has the means to invest in things that are not necessarily affordable for the private sector. And so we are launching first a mobility project, a mobility which is based on the idea of integrating energetic and digital transition. I think that is something concrete, something that is deliverable, is achievable, and the government is shifting its public investment policy into these kind of projects. So this project has the ambition to build and design a mobility platform, an integrated mobility platform. Maybe you can help me now for moving around. This mobility platform should integrate solutions by electric bicycles, which are already on a public tender here in Andorra. It should also be able to integrate bus solution, and we are just working also on a tender on this part, but it also should be able to integrate everything related to car sharing, which is a fantastic opportunity for having energetic transition faster, because the acquisition of personal electric vehicles is something that is very slow, so we have to imagine these car sharing things, and it must integrate also the parking management solutions. Mobility is a question of transport, but also of parkings. And only by having an integrated view, a holistic view, we will be able to succeed. But holistic view also means transversality with other sectors. We have to imagine that by giving mobility to people, we can cross-sell it with the touristic sector. We can cross-sell with quality of life. And we have to imagine that we will be able in the future to sell mobility to our visitors because they are already consuming in the retail sector, or that we can sell retail offerings because they are consuming mobility. And this is a very interesting piece of project that we would like to share with you. Mobility as a competitive asset, that's what we want. It's not a question of how we move, it's a question of how we make it a competitive advantage for Andorra. And so this is the idea. We are, to end up, because I'm getting a little bit too long, we would like to mention the PEV project that we're having with the MIT. We are very much interested in working on autonomous-driven initiatives. So I just say it because I know that many of you here are working on this kind of project, so we want to share experiences with you. You will have opportunity to talk to our people during these days. To end up, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's difficult to start, it's difficult to end up, so I thought that maybe Michael Porter was a better ender for this speech. And so I leave you with a sentence from Michael Porter about competitiveness and innovation.
Not about being the best, it's about how are we unique? How can we deliver some unique value? Strategy is essentially about competing to be unique.
This is what it was all about. We think that innovation and investing in innovation can make us a unique destination in many ways. How people enjoy and experience ourselves, but also in how we can be a real living lab where to test business solutions that you cannot test anywhere else. Said that, I just wish you that you have a unique time here at the MIT, that you have a unique experience by staying a few days in Andorra, and that you have a unique time in Andorra. Thank you very much.